Welcome, everybody, to Two Goalies, One Mike Trade Special. I'm Johnny Cullen, joined alongside Duane. Duane, you've been all over this since the very beginning. How you doing?
We'll see at 3:00 if it can get any better than what it's been. At this point, I doubt it.
I came in today not expecting much. Taylor Hall's on his way out. Curtis Lazar's on his way out. We'll get to more in a minute. Other blockbuster deals that have gone down. If you had your head buried in the sand, Duane, you want to take us through the biggest ones? Well, obviously, one that had to get. Go ahead.
You saw what happened with Columbus and Toronto. Nick Foligno on his way up to Toronto with for the Maple Leafs in exchange for a first-round pick and 4 first-round picks with half salary retained. I know one of those fourth-round picks did go to San Jose because they had cap room to work with. To kind of help alleviate the trade for both sides. We already knew about the trade that went down between New Jersey and the Islanders, but it was actually just reported. I'm not sure how much of a report this actually is, but per someone named Steven Rosner, who works for New York Islanders Hockey Now, it's being reported that the deal the Islanders had in place for Hall last Wednesday was basically identical to what was sent to the New Jersey Devils for Palmieri and Zajac. From what I'm being told, Sabres would have received that first round pick they wanted that other teams were hesitant to give. So this seems to be a situation where Hall didn't want to go there, I'd imagine, unless Kevin Adams thought maybe he can get more by saying no. I don't know.
I think you're right on the first part. I think that with the extra comments that came out from Wyszynski about Hall's no movement clause, and that's a whole other can of worms, I think that makes more sense to me.
I agree. I think this was Hall trying to, and this is why you don't give a no movement clause to a guy on a 1-year deal, in my opinion.
Listen, we've disagreed on almost everything today so far, but on that, I am with you 100%. Take the fans through your argument, or just how you worded it.
It blows my mind where you going into this, you might have hopes of re-signing the guy. Sure. Okay, great. But worst case scenario, you trade him at the deadline for what you would think would be a little bit of a ransom. So maybe in their minds, they're thinking like, well, what are the chances of this season going off the rails and us not getting what we want for Taylor Hall, or Hall not willing, who's played for how many teams, not willing to just, waive his no trade clause to go to a contender. Okay, maybe that's the mindset. But with that being said, it's just, why would you back yourself into a corner the way you have by offering him that? If I'm Buffalo, if I have to sign Taylor Hall, I'm actually giving him more money than the $8 million just so he doesn't want that no movement clause. Because in my opinion, who's going to say no to an extra $250,000? In the grand scheme of things, if you're already paying him $8 million, what's that extra $250,000 to convince a guy and his agent, hey, can we just get rid of this no movement clause? Because, if things don't go the way we want them to, we would at least like to be able to dictate where we send you and the return we get, because you backed yourself into this corner now. This is all on you as an organization. You should have never given him that no move clause.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that, listen, when you sign deals, you have to prepare yourself for the best and the worst. Obviously, when they signed that deal and they felt comfortable giving him this no move, they didn't imagine themselves being in this situation. But good managers, good asset managers do that. And I think with a guy like Hall, you hope for the best that, hey, if things go well, we'll re-sign him. But you plan for the worst that, hey, if it doesn't go well, we can move him to the highest bidder. But with the no movement clause, you can't do that. And you're kind of, by the balls by him and his agent. So I agree with you 100% there. It doesn't make sense. It's part of it.
It stinks.
Well, it is what it is. The Islanders obviously made the first big splash to the deadline. We were, the missing piece in that trade was Zajac being included on top of Palmieri. I wondered who that would be for Buffalo. I like Lazar. I think he's been a great PK guy. I think he's been our best faceoff guy. Is he movable? Yeah. Is he outside of those guys, that unmovable core? No. So let's talk about the return, though, in the Hall trade. You get a Sankent and you get Anders Bjork. Anders, obviously coming in, he has some experience playing with
Granato.
Jack Michael and under Don Granato. They played at they played under Don for the NDTP team back in the day. Anders was a native of Wisconsin, an American guy. Obviously, he's put up very low numbers in his first few years as a pro. Obviously, was a part of that. Was a part of the Bruins playoff run last year. I remember he scored one nice goal in that first round. Other than that, he hasn't done much. He's a 5th round pick by the Bruins back in 2014. And looking at his numbers, he went to Notre Dame. He had a great season at Notre Dame his senior year, I think, or what has been his sophomore year.
He had a good college career at Notre Dame. He had a good college career.
Especially that it would have been his junior year. I apologize. 52 points in 39 games. That's incredible. Played in the World Championship for the U.S., put up zeros across the board. In those next couple years, listen, every year since even including last year, he bounced between the NHL and the AHL. Now, do I think that he's part of Buffalo's, core going forward? No, but when he was at his best, he was projected to be that middle six, high-end middle six guy. Has he been stuck behind, a log jam of good forwards in Boston? Yes, 100%. Could he be part of the solution here? Yeah, there's no reason he can't be. Is that a great return for Taylor Hall? No, but you're getting down to the end here. And Duane, you brought up something, and we'll get into this, I'm sure, that you absolutely hate losing guys for nothing, right?
Agreed. But before we touch on that, on the Curtis Lazar thing, it's just I mean, as of right now, from what we've seen out of both players, I mean, obviously we've seen more of Lazar than we've seen of Bajor. It's just, for me, I just value more out of Curtis Lazar at league minimum than what we've seen so far from this guy at double the price tag for more term. I just think this team has enough bad contracts on its books right now. Why take on another one? Because as of right now, it looks to be a bad contract. The eye test, looking for what we've seen, the little I've actually watched of Anders Bjork, and just the from what you see from a stat line wise, I mean, this looks like it's going to be another bad contract for at least another year. And I just don't think
1.7. I mean,
yeah, sure. It is.
You can bury him in the minors if you feel that way.
It's a one-way. I think he's on a one-way deal, so I think he's up here no matter what.
Oh, dude, if that sucks, then, because I can't believe.
I'm not sure. I'm not 100% positive. I think it's a one-way deal. Maybe somebody can enlighten me in the comments who wants to comment. But I just, even so, what if we end up waiving this guy? It's just like, why? Like, I feel like we did a favor to Boston there, rather than ourselves. I feel like we did Boston the favor. So
the thing that sucks for me is Curtis Lazar is signed through next year. I like him. I'll give you that. I'll concede to that, Duane. If you're looking at it as strictly Hall for the Sankent, Bjork for Lazar, I mean, you can make the argument that you lost that trade. I think that the one thing that I'll have Kevin Adams back here is you've seen. And not to get too ahead of ourselves, I know we're still way out of the playoff race. I will make the argument that I think that the optimistic view that I think that we're closer to turning this around, or this could be turned around quicker than other people think. Now, the reason I say that is the young core of guys has played well and played more freely, and we've both agreed on that. And moving a guy like Hall, who hasn't been in the lineup the past couple weeks or week and a half. So obviously you're not losing anything there. Lazar has been, if I'm not mistaken, pretty sure he's been in the lineup. Yeah, he has been. I don't know. Until I see Bjork, come in and play and see how he gels with this young group, let's see how he fares,
Well,
right? So,
here's an intricacy to the puzzle, or I'm not sure if I'm wording that correctly. Apparently, Nick Kyprios on the instigators just now that said Chicago may be interested in acquiring Bajork.
there you go. Well, Kevin Adams knew that all along. Then fuck, you're laughing.
Yeah, I don't know if he knew all that. I mean, I don't know if he knew that all along. I think maybe that's something just come up in the last. I mean, I'm not going to speak for it, but I'm just outside of a few names. I'm just willing. There's nobody that's off the table, trade wise on this team, other than maybe a few select names. But it's just, I just don't want to. I don't want to be taking on bad contracts. This is a team that can't afford to take on bad contracts. We have enough already. It just, we put ourselves in that situation doing just that for how many years now. And now we've been in this situation where we can't make maybe the right moves that we want to make this team better in the long term, even in the short term. Let's be real. It's, I don't know. No more bad contracts. If we can come out of this unloading a bad guy, if we gain nothing but maybe a third or fourth round pick today, but we find a way to unload a bad contract, even if it's like a Cody Eakin, which is a terrible contract. I mean, and that's a guy even I was kind of sort of willing to give a chance when we acquired him in free.
He's a friend of the program, right?
Yeah, he's a friend of the program. If you find a way to unload that contract, because obviously, that hasn't worked out. Nothing against the guy, but it just hasn't. How can you argue against it? I'm happy. I guess I'm happy. Just give me some flexibility going into free agency and a few picks to go into the expansion draft with, maybe you can utilize to get rid of another bad contract, i.e. Kyle Okposo.
Listen, I've loved Kyle Okposo's game recently. Listen, I am not pretending to say that he is at his best or he has a long time left, but if you are going to go full out youngsters, let's let the kids play. Yeah, I don't think it's terrible to have one, older forward around in the room. And if that's why he's staying, then I get it. But he's not been playing terrible. You have to agree that if you're looking at Kyle Okposo over the past 3 years and Kyle Okposo the past 10 games, these past 10 games have been light years ahead of what he's been. Now, I'm not saying that's why you keep him. But if he's doing more behind the scenes than we realize, then I get it.
I value the cap relief so much more than what Kyle Okposo has done in the last 10 games. I so much more value.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we're both entitled to our opinions. I think that Kyle Okposo is well liked in that room. I think that, I like this comment right here from Katzafraz. Zay Jackson is real for Lou Lamoriello. I think these guys fit the team's ethos so much more than Taylor Hall. Yeah, I don't disagree with her there. Him or her. I'm sorry. I can't say that. I don't know. Don't get mad at me.
Oh, Katz is never going to hear the end of that.
Stop. I don't know, Katz. Stevie Lee, winner of the Eichel jersey. How much do you think it hurt us not having a real GM for this deadline? Listen, I think you only get better with time. It's like an old red wine, But Kevin Adams in his first deadline, I think he's still got 3 hours, 2 hours and 47 minutes. I don't want to not call him a real GM. I think that's tough. I know Duane would have no problem saying that. So, Duane, you can answer that one from Stevie Weeks. How much did it hurt us not having a real GM?
I'm not going to sit here and say Kevin Adams in the long run won't be a good GM, but I think it definitely hurts him that he has no experience leading into this. I think it hurt him in free agency last year. I think it's going to hurt him here. I think
hurts him the most, not having a fucking assistant GM. So Stevie Weeks, that's my answer. It's not that we don't have a real GM. We have an imaginary assistant GM. So a lot of times, one person can't be on 2 phone calls at once, right? Where you can have
a very depleted scouting staff, a very, very, very depleted scouting staff. I think, honestly, I'm not exaggerating. I think it's one of the smallest, if not the smallest in the league.
Yeah, but I wasn't kidding about not having an assistant GM. I think.
No, I agree with you.
I think for Stevie's question, that to me is a bigger hole than anything. Because these trades, there's a lot of moving pieces with these. that's when, if KA can, finish one of these deals, and instead of being, hung up, ironing out all the details, he can move on to the next one, or vice versa. But without an assistant GM, like, what are you fucking doing here?
I agree. It's, I think you just need somebody that has, some type of experience in the league at that position, just, helping build a hockey team. And you have nothing, you literally have nothing, none of that. And you've just gutted your scouting department, making the job for the GM even harder. Not even just the GM, the first time GM. I don't know. This team hasn't put these people in a position to succeed. I'll say that much.
I want to go back to the Foligno trade. So it was Columbus that was able to get a first round pick. But listen, and all props to Jarmo Kekalainen. I think I'm saying his name right. He's been at the class of general managers, at the top of the class for general managers for at least the past 5 years. I think that's how long he's been there. So it was a three-way trade. Columbus traded, him to. They got a first and a fourth from Toronto. The Sharks then also received a fourth-round pick from Toronto for Stefan Noesen. I played against Stefan Noesen. I thought he was the ugliest kid in the world. He was from Texas, Duane. Literally the ugly. And for me to call somebody ugly is special. He's been a guy that hasn't had a ton of success in his career. But what do you make of the Leafs doing all this? And let me ask you, this is my main point of asking this. You comparing the Hall trade to other trades, you can say that, sorry, Stevie, what do you got? I'm worried about the thin staff going into the draft. This franchise sucks at drafting anyways. Yeah, 100%. Our draft history has been very light. My point on this, Duane, is if you look at it, there's two ways of looking at it. If you look at it like the market was set by what Toronto paid, yeah, then the Sabres got fleeced. Or you look at it like, the Jackets really fleeced the Maple Leafs, and this was more of an accurate gauge of the market. It's tough to say, but it lends more to your argument that a first could have been involved if we go back to the Islanders trade. And I really think that if you're going to get a first out of this year, it was going to be from the Islanders. And given all that, no movement clause sucked. So it's been definitely a more active trade deadline than I expected it was going to be.
Yeah, and again, it's just difficult as a fan of the team just to sit back and look and be like, what is happening? And now we're heading into, again, the next 2 hours and 45 minutes here, just very uncertain of, where we're going to sit as a franchise, going forward, going into the rest of the season, going into free agency. We still don't know. And granted, I know me and you both think very highly of Don Granato, but we right now we still have just an interim head coach. And as a player who doesn't play for this team, who's going to go into free agency, how do you view this organization right now? That's the scary thing, is the outlookers' view of this organization, and who's going to want to come here now. It's just, you saw what happened this year in a shortened season. Granted, injury and COVID played a big part of that. You would hope that some people would take that into consideration, but it's just you felt almost fortunate that you were able to sign Taylor Hall this last offseason. Granted, I think my opinion of it, was obviously the $8 million was a big reason why, and the ability to possibly play with an elite center and maybe even make more in free agency on a longer term for a longer term deal played more a part in that than anything. But are you even going to get that opportunity now in free agency, even if you have the money? Our team's going to want to oh God, I don't want to go through that dumpster fire. That they finished bottom 3 in the league, for 5 out of the last 6 years now. It's a scary thing.
Yeah. Can we talk about Ullmark now? Because me and you are passionately on two different sides of this.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we can definitely talk about Ullmark.
Let's set the tone. The goalie market has been, one that hasn't been huge. Listen, the way I look at it and the way I started this argument with Duane, and it is an argument, it got heated. is that there isn't a ton of teams looking for goalies. Okay. For me, you look at it. The most recent trade was Calgary gets a third in exchange for David Riddick. He goes to Toronto. Okay. The other goalies that have been traded, obviously, we saw Devin Dubnyk go to Colorado in exchange for Greg Pattern and a 5th-round pick. Here's a funny thing. I think I played against Pattern, and this guy, if you recognize the name, Duane, because he's been traded at least like every deadline the past 5 years. Do you recognize the name Greg Pattern?
Yeah.
I feel for the guy because he's just been a throw-in in a lot of these deals the past fucking 5 years.
He's a suitcase. It's like Galchenyuk. He's a suitcase.
Hey, you don't say that. Galley's been really turning around his game. I'm proud of him.
No, I agree. He has been, but
what a nice year for Cully to not have to root against the Leafs because 2 of my former teammates are there and they're both turning it around. Galchenyuk looked like the player that he was drafted to be. And I always thought that he'd be a better pro than Yakupov. He's doing well, even getting some time.
Talk about a bad draft class.
Yeah, fuck. Yeah. Talk about the bad leadership from them. That was me. Anyways, back to my point. The goalie market. Colorado, you can look at the teams that were looking for a goalie. Colorado, Toronto at the top of the list, right? You can maybe throw Florida in there, but no, because they have Bob at 10 and Dredger has been playing well.
Dredger at Florida.
Carolina's dealt with some injuries, but they're getting their guys back. So I think when we talk about Ullmark, my main argument is this. Well, maybe you could say your argument first. Go ahead.
I just think for me, you never want to lose something for nothing, especially if something of value. I'll never take a player at their word. This is a business at the end of the day. It really is. It's a business, and your word in this business isn't always as strong as your bond. I think that's the saying. For me, to see a guy who has played as well as Linus Ullmark, I value that and want to sign him to an extension. I mince no words about it. I want Ullmark in a Sabres jersey for at least the next 2 to 3 years until you figure out what you have in UPL and you watch the development of a guy like Eric Portillo. With that being said, I think with the season he's had, and you saw the market is only as good as the need. So you have to have teams out there that want a need for a goaltender. You saw Dubnyk go to Colorado. You saw Riddick as recently as yesterday go to Toronto. So there has been somewhat of a market for goaltenders. Granted, that just depleted by 2 teams, but
I think those were your 2 teams, though.
I mean, were they? I think it's pretty safe to say that if you're expected to be a playoff team, you need consistent goaltending from both your goalies. I mean,
who else you got in mind?
I mean, you're telling me St. Louis wouldn't want a better backup? Look, they're hurting after letting go of Jake Allen. I know
you're not even guaranteed to make the playoffs this year. I just think that's tough, right? You put yourself in that role, and then okay. So you're. I'll let you finish if you want.
You look at what was going down. And I mean, granted, again, they're not really in a position to make a deal, but a team like the Dallas Stars, I know Khudobin just signed an extension, but he's had his struggles this season, and he's been in and out of the lineup a couple different times. Not saying that Dallas is that team, just use them as an example. I think there is a market out there for goaltending. Look at San Jose. I mean, granted, they're not in any position to make the playoffs, but they're in a market for a goaltender.
Adam Gaudette has been.
Yeah, I just saw it.
From the Blackhawks get Gaudette and the Canucks get Matthew Highmore. Will that affect the Anders Bork sweepstakes that you just mentioned? I don't know. Back to Ullmark. Here's my thing.
Kulikov was just traded too, I believe, and apparently Getzlaf is open to a move to the Vegas Golden Knights. This is per Andy Strickland. So I mean, a lot is happening right now. We're getting into 2 hours till deadline, and a lot is happening right now.
So my comment on Ullmark is this: you said you don't want to give him up for nothing. I'm with you on that, but I think it's a part of hockey, and it happens. I think you go to this. If the return you're going to get back is negligible, and what I mean by that is if it's like a 3rd or 4th or a 5th or a 6th round pick, is that really accurate of what his value is. Maybe in this marketplace and today, sure, but I don't think it is. I think you gain more by keeping him and allowing yourself the exclusive rights to negotiate his contract for the rest of the year. Now, granted, is that a guarantee that it gets done? No. But I'd rather, your argument was that if he's not signing an extension by 3 p.m., trade him, right?
I'm just not willing to take a player at his
word. That's what you said earlier.
Yeah, no, I'm not disagreeing. I'm just piggybacking off that, saying I'm not willing to take a player at his word that he wants to sign here. If you want to sign here, then just sign here.
I think if the offer was a 3rd-round pick for Ullmark, I think he's worth more than that in a normal market. So for me, I wouldn't take the 3rd-rounder going by your logic that, well, you're getting something for nothing. No, you still have the rest of the season to negotiate with his agent, okay? Now, I get that you're saying you're not taking a player at his word. That's fine. But at this point, you're still giving yourself a chance. Instead of trading him and just saying, fuck, we're getting something for him. Well, no. We're running the risk of losing him as a UFA. But at least, we can continue conversations up until the year's out. Let's not make any mistake about it. He has been a lone bright spot here in Buffalo. Just looking at the record of him in net versus him not in net is fucking crazy. So it's that's where I'm at on that. I'd rather keep him and try to continue to negotiate as long as, you give yourself a chance to keep him here. I think he's part of the solution.
And again, I don't disagree with you. I want to see Linus Ullmark as a Buffalo Sabre long term. It's just the grand scheme of things. I think two of the biggest reasons we were in this team is in this situation it's in right now are signing bad contracts, dealing with bad contracts. 2, you see players leave for nothing. It's happened multiple times. I just don't want to see that happen here. I don't want to see it, especially when you're going into an expansion draft where picks are very, very valuable. Very valuable. Like if you can get a 2nd-round pick out of Linus Ullmark, especially if there's not really any indication that he does truly want to sign here. Again, I know we talked about it earlier. I know you're taking both players at name value. Obviously, name value of one player is much higher than the other. But you go back to what happened with John Tavares between the Islanders and the Toronto Maple Leafs. It was not the exact same situation, but Tavares came to the team and said, hey, I don't want to be dealt at the deadline. I haven't made my decision yet. The team took him at his word. He made them feel confident that there was a chance that they were going to re-sign him. And then once he hit free agency, went straight to Toronto and had some picture cooked up of him in Toronto Maple Leaf BJs sleeping in his bed back at home in Toronto. It's just, I don't want to see that happen. Again, name value is much more valuable than Tavares compared to Ullmark. The return, just on his name alone, you're getting a much bigger return for John Tavares than you would for Linus Ullmark. I just don't want to see us be put in that position where you're seeing players leave for nothing.
And my argument was this: the Islanders lost Tavares for nothing, and then the doom and gloomers say, "Oh, they're finished." Look where they are now. They're in great shape. I think they're better off now than they ever were with Tavares. Now, I'm not saying that's a direct reason because of it. No, but I'm just saying that you lose players for nothing all the time. It's not the end of your franchise. That's what
I agree. My argument, not argument to that, but my response to that is, but they could still be the same team they are now today, and they would be, and to boot have draft picks or maybe even prospects, that were already in Toronto's pipeline or whatever team's pipeline from that I already added to this mix that they have that's winning and playing so well right now. That's all I meant is, and again, when you say players leave for nothing, who are you talking about? Are we talking about guys like, Curtis Lazar's contract ends and we let him walk for nothing?
No, he had another year.
Jimmy, no, but you know what I mean. I'm just using him as an example. Or, when we had Jimmy VC letting him leave for nothing, or this guy leave for nothing, who are the players that are leaving for nothing? Are they bottom line league minimum type players? Or are they players that, wherever they're going are, could be, one of the, what's the word I'm looking for? One of the solutions to that team, or would they have been a solution to this team? I am in full agreement. I want to keep Ullmark, but I just don't want to take players at their word anymore at all, especially when you're talking about a team that has finished dead last how many years in the last 5. It's just, can you really really believe that a player wants to stick around for even more of this? I don't know. Especially a goaltender.
I don't know. I'd like to see Ullmark re-sign a long-term deal. I think it was worth the $5 million a year. That's a whole nother conversation. It's going to be interesting to see how the Sabres retool. I think that first things first, I think you signed Don Granato as your coach next year. I think you give him – did you guys see Hall is driving to Buffalo to play us? Yeah. But he's first driving to Boston.
He's driving to Boston so he can be in the lineup to play against us.
So, and it's funny, like all the conditions this year, like Lazar talked about it in his interview on the NHL Network, or I think it was his press call with Boston, that they have to it has to be a private transportation, which they're not going to fucking hop on a metro bus or a train to go to Boston, right? Yeah. But just that it has to be said that they're driving in their own cars and that's private travel. Like, how else are you going to get there? Like, if me and you were to go to Boston, we'd probably drive our cars there, right? And we'd be okay to play under COVID rules. Yeah. Listen, the thing that stings, or I know maybe it doesn't sting, maybe it works out well for us, is that we play them, 7 times still? And we can really shove it up their hoop, right? I don't know.
They can shove it up ours. The
boys are buzzing. I don't expect them to do well. I just think that if we can see more growth and development out of our young core, that's exciting for me. I've always wondered, what would it take to get the most out of guys like Middlestat, Dahlin, Tage Thompson. And Cousins has played well no matter who has been his coach, but I think there's more upside in that. And I think you saw under Kruger an unwillingness for him to play or maybe unleash some of the younger guys. And that's exciting for me. On the flip side of things, I know we maybe touched on this. One of my favorite players growing up, Jeff Carter, is now a Pittsburgh Penguin. The LA gets back a conditional 3rd and 4th. Carter's at the end of his career. He's obviously a proven winner. I liked him dating back all the way back to Philly. Him and Mike Richards used to be my favorite players. And to hear some of the stories about Dry Island and shit like that, and to hear their interviews is great. He has a chance to win in Pittsburgh. I think that's a good deal for both sides. But going back to LA, Duane, they're in the same boat with a Buffalo guy, Alex Iafallo, friend of the program. I got to skate with him, and
he's from Buffalo too, isn't he?
Yeah. My brother and sister-in-law are real close with him and his dad and his sister. Shout out Jules Iafallo. She's a heck of a player too. So is the old man. Crazy story about Mr. Iafallo. He never really played hockey growing up. Just kind of picked it up late in life. Owner of the Townhouse, the bar. Great little spot. Great wings, Duane. I know that's a Southtowns bar, but great spot. Couple clicks for Mr. Iafallo. He started playing hockey late in life, and the guy is a fucking stud. He is an absolute wagon, Duane.
Yep.
But Alex has had a nice career. He's a 27-year-old. I think it's tricky for the Kings because they're in a rebuild, but he's right in that age bracket that could still be a part of that.
It looks like that deal might get done today too, from everything that's indicating the Iafallo thing. It looks like they're getting close on and making the deal done today.
Yeah, and I mean it's similar to what we're going through with Ullmark. I think that you look at value. I think Iafallo is the better player, but different positions, different values there. It's interesting. I just think it's cool. It's going to be cool to see Carter on the other side of that Pittsburgh-Philly rivalry. Another trade, it's kind of got lost in the Hall shuffle. Ottawa trades Mike Riley to Boston for a 3rd-round pick, and he's a good D-man. He's only getting a 3rd-round pick, right?
Yep.
So it's just interesting to see the different values this year with everything that's going on. Former captain of mine, Brian Lashoff. I play with him in Kingston. He's been a career minor leaguer with a handful of NHL games. He's a world junior gold medalist for the United States. He was part of that Tampa Bay Detroit trade. He went to Tampa Bay as well. So really good guy. Wish Lash nothing but the best. He was a great captain on a losing team. I don't know. Looking back at this, Duane, I think I'm more impressed with what Kevin Adams was able to get for Brandon Montour.
I for Brandon Montour too, and I'm not going to put out any names out there. I have a friend of mine who visits a bar in Lewiston often, And there is a certain executive, and I'm not even sure of his title. Certain person who works for the Florida Panthers who, for the past 3 to 4 weeks, has been very vocal about how much he loves Brandon Montour. He's communicated this to me quite a few times. He said he always goes out of his way when we're talking about this team to talk about how much he likes Brandon Montour. So I personally think that, based off, I have no reason to believe that this person is lying, that that was more or less maybe a little bit of an overpayment by Florida because they really liked the player. And they had a huge need with Ekblad being out for the season.
Yeah, that sucks for them having Ekblad lose, and you're not going to fill that hole just with Montour, but hopefully he can eat up some of those minutes. That sucks. Ekblad has been a guy that I like. I'll use this analogy again. When you look at Florida, somebody who struggled and had a lot of turnover at the GM and coach position, but you look at their big three of Barkov, Huberdeau, and Ekblad, I compare it to the likes of, Eichel, Reinhart, and Dahlin. And for a team for them that has been, mediocre to bad for just as long as the Sabres have here, for them to finally get things turned around, it's hopeful for me that the Sabres aren't that far away, right?
It started last year in free agency. You saw some of the smaller deals they made. They brought Duclair in for a year, Verhaeghe for $2 million, which is hilarious. It's just they've been doing it the right way. They've essentially become a little bit of a blueprint here for teams to follow along going into this next free agency period of how to build your team for some type of even short-term success. And that's what I want Buffalo to do. I don't want to see Buffalo sign guys to long-term deals. I want short-term deals. I want you to give these kids like your Rustalainen, like your Bryson, like your Borgen. I want you to bring guys in that, help give these guys some time to develop and become full-time NHL players, and you can do that and the cost not be as much and the term not be as much. It's like essentially, finding a goalie, what we were planning on doing with Hutton, have Hutton be a bridge to Ullmark and, or now we have to go find another goalie to be a bridge, to whomever. I don't know. It's just, I want to see short-term deals. I want to see, play with the cap here a little bit in the offseason and try and find a way to get rid of like an Eakin contract, because right now you have about $10 million tied up in your fourth line, and that's not good.
Yeah, that's not good. It's for me, it's going to be interesting to see the way that free agency hits this year. Yeah, I go back to one of your earlier questions. Stevie Weeks just asked, what are the chances they keep Granato? What do you think?
I think Granato's making it really hard for them to, not give him a chance. Like for a tryout for the job, Granato's doing very well for himself. And I think we all know that the Ghouls probably aren't looking to pay top money on a coach. And I don't think Granato's going to cost them a lot if he were to be, considered for the job. So I think there's a good chance they keep Granato, especially if he finds a way to get 500 hockey out of this team. Now, I'm not saying they have to have a 500 record, but to play 500 hockey, if you know what I mean, like where they're not out of any games. Like this past game against the Capitals, like they weren't out of it at any point. Like they got down and they came back and they fought. And was it against the Capitals? I think it was against the Capitals, correct? Their past win. Yes. They fought after being down 2-0. At no point during that game, as a fan.
You're talking about the Sabres?
Oh, the Flyers. It was the Flyers. Sorry, the Flyers against Hart. Yes, I remember the goal. Yeah, sorry, I apologize. It was the Philadelphia Flyers. At no point during that game, even when they were down early, did you believe that there's no way they're coming back to win this game, because they were performing and they were playing hard and they were playing well. They were playing. They were playing. Good in front of their own net, in front of their net, in the neutral zone. It's just never at any point did I get those feelings that I had under Kruger, where I was like, oh God, we're cooked. They fought right up until the end, and they took control in the third period, which is something they've had a very hard time doing this season. playing well in the third period, and they came out and they won a hockey game. And going back to that game against the Capitals, and there was like another game against Jersey. They were in those games too. That game against the Capitals, they were in that game. They were never out of it. I mean, they came back. They made a late push. They played well. So this team is night and day with Granato compared to what they were under Kruger, because they're never out of games. And I think that's the most noticeable difference is they're never out of a hockey game anymore. We're never sitting here as a fan thinking like, oh my God, there's no way. Like, this is terrible. This is that, it's doom and gloom. Under Granato, it's been much different because that's what it was like under Kruger.
Yeah, I'm all with you on that. I think that the big thing for me is Granato. You two big points for me. I think you're on the right path with the Pagulas not wanting to pay top dollar for anybody, but you have a solution in Granato that's already here that has shown the willingness to get the most out of our young guys and help us turn the corner. In the right way. I think that Kruger had an idea in mind that, wasn't really the best coaches to me, Duane, are the ones that are willing to adapt into their situation and get the most out of their guys. I think Kruger had an idea of what he wanted to do coming in, and I think he sold the Pagulas on that idea, and they were willing to have his back on it. But you have to be willing to adapt to what you have, and not only adapt to the players you have, but the league you're in. And I think that hurt Kruger a lot, that he was unwilling to kind of waver from what he had in mind. But another, going back to Katz, my apologies for messing that up. Trying to get his question up on the screen here. I don't know if you can do that.
Oh, Katz?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Jack sweetened the deal for Lou Lamoriello. I think these guys fit the team ethos. Everybody knows about Lou Lamoriello, his no facial hair policy, how he does things. I don't want to say that Taylor Hall wouldn't have fit there. I just think that I think Palmieri and Zajac just fit the mold so much better there. Going back, Duane, one of the most interesting things you said, like connecting the dots between Greg Wyshynski's comments about Taylor Hall's no movement.
Well, it's not even just Greg Wyshynski's comment. It's coming straight from Taylor Hall. Said the no movement clause definitely helped make me a Bruin. This was a team I really wanted to be a part of and really wanted to join when he was made aware that he was being traded a few weeks ago. Like that's coming straight from Taylor Hall. And that's why you don't give them the no move clause on for a player like that on a 1-year deal. Like, you just don't give them that no move clause. If you have to have that player, pay him more so he doesn't have a no move clause. If that's what it takes. Like, I have it hard to believe him and his agent say no to an extra $250K on top of the $8 million just to waive a no move clause. As being
maybe, hey, you know what? Now I just thought of it. Maybe that was part of their thing coming in, that, hey, no matter what, like that was one of the starting pieces. Hey, he'll sign. Maybe that's why other teams weren't willing to sign him, or he wasn't willing to go to other teams, is because they didn't put that no movement on the table. Maybe that's why everybody was so surprised with Buffalo, but maybe the starting point for his agent was, hey, before we talk numbers, no movement clause has to be in the deal, So maybe it just progressed from there. I feel better thinking about it like that than getting towards the end of the negotiation, and then his agent say, hey, we want the no movement clause. Is that good? You know what I mean? No, I don't know. We're talking about behind closed doors, but
yeah, or even so, if there has to be some type of clause, have it be, what is it? They have the limited trade clauses, don't they? Where you have to have the player provide a list of 10 teams beforehand, like that teams he'd be willing to go to. Isn't there like a clause like that too? Like a limited trade no move clause?
Yeah, there's limited no movement clauses.
So, I mean, at least that, if there has to be one involved, at least make it that. So you're not handcuffed, as Kevin Adams himself isn't just handcuffed to just the one team, where there are better offers on the table elsewhere, which is what it seems there was with the New York Islanders. So, and that's just that one report that's coming out. There was allegedly a couple teams involved with Taylor Hall as of yesterday. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
So
it is what it is.
Yep. So I I obviously we still have 2 hours and 15 minutes here up until the deadline. I hope that we get some good news here leading into this. I'm always excited for deadline day regardless. It's always an exciting day just as a hockey fan. So we'll see what happens here, what teams change even more dramatically now over the next 2 hours, if at all. And just the news that'll come out afterwards. I'm excited, and we two goalies, one Mike, myself, and I think Ty B will be coming to you live a little bit later in the day with an update on trade deadline, whether it's right at 3 o'clock or beforehand. We plan on coming out live again at least one to two more times to discuss the deadline. So stay tuned for that, and be sure to, when you remember that. This show is brought to you by manscaped.com. When you use the code word Trainwreck, you get 20% off your entire purchase plus free shipping. I personally have the Lawnmower 3.0. It's an unbelievable product, an unbelievable razor. Has the built-in flashlight, as waterproof in case you're in a hurry and need to shave on the go and you have to do it in the shower. It is completely waterproof, and it has a protective guard to protect your family jewels from any nicks and cuts. So be sure to get over to manscaped.com and use the code word Trainwreck for 20% off and free shipping. So, fun episode, guys. Again, hopefully we'll come here live again a little bit later and we'll have better news for Sabres fans everywhere. But, had a good time, Cully. I don't know. I'm still a little bit depressed from last night. Very, very, very disgruntled over the return. But I guess, it is what it is. And we'll see what happens here in the coming hours with Linus Ullmark and the Buffalo Sabres and the rest of the NHL.
Yeah. Enjoy the day. Enjoy the deadline day. Good luck to you and Ty B later, Duane.
Yep. This has been episode 60 of Two Goalies, One Mic, brought to you by manscaped.com. Again, use code word Trainwreck for 20% off and free shipping. We will see you next week.